Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me for just a moment, because what I'm about to say could save you months, maybe even years, of unnecessary heartbreak. If someone tells you they don't want you, believe them. Don't argue. Don't beg. Don't chase. And whatever you do, don't spend your nights trying to convince someone to love you. Because real love never has to be negotiated. Now, before we go any further, can I ask you a small favor? If you enjoy honest relationship advice that helps you become stronger, wiser, and more confident, please subscribe to the Love and Relationship Lab. Every week I'll bring you practical lessons inspired by great thinkers and real-life experiences to help you build healthier relationships and understand both men and women better. Thank you so much for being here. Now, let's get into today's lesson. You see, one of the biggest mistakes many people make after rejection is believing they must prove their value. They start asking questions. What did I do wrong? What can I change? What if I try harder? But let me tell you something. I've learned, after watching relationships for many years, the moment you start trying to convince someone that you're worthy of being loved, you've already forgotten your own value. Love is not a courtroom where you present evidence. Love is a choice. And if someone chooses to walk away, your dignity should never follow them. Let me give you a simple example. There was a woman named Nagawa. She loved a man named Christian with all her heart. She supported his dreams. She encouraged him when business was slow. She celebrated every small victory he had. She wasn't perfect, but she was loyal. Then, one evening, Christian looked at her and quietly said, "I don't think this relationship is what I want anymore." Those words crushed her. Every part of Nagawa wanted to ask why. She wanted one more conversation, one more chance, one more opportunity to make him change his mind. Her friends even told her, "Fight for your relationship. Show him how much you love him. Don't give up." But an older woman in her family gave her very different advice. She said, "My daughter, never chase someone who is walking away from you. If he needs to leave, let him leave. If he belongs in your life, life has a way of bringing him back. But if you chase him, you'll only lose yourself." At first, Nagawa didn't understand those words. She wanted answers. She wanted closure. She wanted Christian to see everything she had done for him. But instead, she chose silence. Not angry silence. Not silence meant to punish him. Just peaceful silence. She stopped sending messages. She stopped checking his social media every hour. She stopped asking mutual friends about him. Instead, she started asking herself something much more important. What kind of woman do I want to become? Now, let me tell you something. Silence is not about making another person suffer. That's where many people get it wrong. Silence is about creating enough space to hear your own voice again. When your heart is constantly focused on someone else's decisions, you stop listening to yourself. But the quiet has a strange way of bringing clarity. Day after day, Nagawa began rebuilding her life. She joined a fitness class. She spent more time with family. She laughed again. She read books she had ignored for years. She invested in her career. Slowly, the woman who thought she had lost everything realized she had actually rediscovered herself. Meanwhile, Christian expected something completely different. He expected emotional messages, late-night phone calls, long explanations. He assumed she would eventually come back, asking for another chance. But nothing came. At first, he didn't think much about it. Days passed. Then, weeks. One afternoon, he unlocked his phone almost without thinking. No message from Nagawa. The next day, still nothing. And for the first time since the breakup, the silence became louder than any argument they had ever had. Now, does every man react this way? No. And it's important to understand that. Some people never come back. Some people leave and never look back. That's why your silence should never be a strategy to manipulate someone into returning. It should be a strategy to protect your own peace. Because if you're staying silent only to force someone to miss you, you're still giving them control over your happiness. Real confidence says, that's real strength. Steve Harvey has often spoken about knowing your value in refusing to settle for less than you deserve. That lesson isn't about pride. It's about self-respect. A person who knows their worth doesn't have to announce it. They simply refuse to accept less. Here's something many people don't realize. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes God, life, it hurts. But pain doesn't always mean something bad is happening. Every season, it loses leaves. It looks broken. The greatest comeback is building a life so peaceful, so meaningful, and believe me, that kind of confidence cannot be faked. Before we continue, I want to make something clear. Today's video is inspired by the style of Steve Harvey. The thoughts shared here also draw from broader relationship psychology and real-life experiences to encourage healthy reflection and personal growth. Now, let's continue. One of the biggest questions people ask after a breakup is this: what is he thinking now? The truth is, nobody can tell you exactly what another person is thinking. Every man is different. Every relationship is different. Emotional patterns that many people experience after a meaningful relationship ends. Here's something most people don't understand. When a relationship ends, two different battles begin. One happens in the heart. The other happens in the mind. The heart feels the loss immediately. That is why some people appear perfectly fine during the first few weeks after a breakup. They're busy. They're distracted. They fill every empty moment with work, friends, social media, or new experiences. But distractions don't erase emotions. Let me take you back to Nagawa and Christian. 3 months had passed since they separated. Nagawa was no longer counting the days. She had stopped wondering whether Christian would call. Instead of waking up and checking her phone, she started waking up with a purpose. She enrolled in a professional course she had delayed for years. She began exercising every morning. She reconnected with old friends she hadn't seen in a long time. something interesting started happening. She wasn't becoming happier because Christian was gone. She was becoming happier because she had stopped making her happiness depend on Christian. That is a powerful difference. Meanwhile, Christian was living the life he thought he wanted. More freedom, more time with friends, no relationship responsibilities. At first, everything felt exciting. But excitement has a habit of fading. One evening, after spending time with friends, Christian returned to an empty apartment. No one asked how his day had been. No one reminded him to eat. No one celebrated his small victories. For the first time, he wasn't missing the relationship. He was missing the connection. Many people confuse those two things. You can miss someone's presence without being ready for a commitment. You can miss the comfort they gave you without being willing to become the partner they deserve. And that's why you should never assume that someone reaching out automatically means they have changed. Missing you and being prepared to build a healthy relationship are not the same thing. This is where wisdom becomes more important than emotion. If someone returns, don't only ask yourself, do they still love me? Also ask, have they grown? Have I grown? Would we solve our problems differently today than we did before? Those questions matter far more than romantic words. Because relationships are not sustained by feelings alone. They are sustained by character. Steve Harvey has often emphasized that love without commitment and responsibility is incomplete. Someone may genuinely care about you, but caring alone doesn't build trust. Caring doesn't guarantee consistency. Real love shows itself through actions repeated over time. Now, let's imagine Christian finally decided to call Nagawa. His voice sounded nervous. He asked if they could meet for lunch. Months earlier, Nagawa would have said yes immediately. She would have cleared her entire schedule. This time, she simply smiled. She thanked him for asking. She checked her calendar. She chose a day that suited her life best. Do you notice the difference? Before, Christian was the center of her world. Now, he was simply part of it. That wasn't revenge. That was balance. Healthy people don't make another human being their entire identity. Because when one person becomes your whole world, losing them feels like losing yourself. But when your life has purpose beyond one relationship, heartbreak hurts without destroying you. Here's another lesson worth remembering. Never confuse loneliness with love. Sometimes people don't miss you. They miss having someone available. Someone to listen. Someone to comfort them. Someone to make life easier. That is why you should pay close attention to actions instead of promises. If someone returns saying, "I've changed," don't rush. Give change time to prove itself. Real transformation is visible. It shows up in patience, in honesty, in consistency, in accountability. Words are easy. Character takes time. Now let's return to Nagawa one last time. She met Christian for coffee. They laughed. They remembered old stories. They spoke with kindness. Then Christian looked at her and quietly admitted, "I thought you would always be there waiting for me." Nagawa smiled gently, not because she wanted him to feel guilty, but because she had finally learned something priceless. No one should spend their life waiting to be chosen. She said, "I loved you, Christian. That was real. But while you were deciding whether I was enough, I discovered I was already enough." Christian lowered his eyes. For the first time, he understood what he had lost. Not because Nagawa punished him, not because she played games, but because she chose growth instead of desperation. Whether they found their way back to each other isn't the most important part of this story. The real victory happened long before that conversation. The real victory was that Nagawa no longer needed Christian to validate her worth. And that's the lesson I hope every person watching this video remembers. Don't build your confidence on whether someone stays. Build it on who you become, because people will come and go throughout your life. Some relationships will last forever. It remains after they leave. Don't measure your progress by whether someone calls you back. The strongest person in the room isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the one who quietly chooses healing over bitterness, growth over revenge. If you've stayed with me this far, you've probably realized something important. This conversation has never really been about making someone regret losing you. It's been about making sure you never lose yourself trying to keep someone who was determined to leave. Now let's bring everything together. There comes a moment after every heartbreak when you stand at a crossroads. One path leads backward. The other leads forward. The backward path is filled with what ifs. What if I had said something different? What if I had been more patient? What if I had loved harder? Those questions can keep a person trapped for months or even years. The forward path asks a different question. What have I learned? That single question changes everything. Pain without reflection becomes suffering, but pain with reflection becomes wisdom. Let's go back to Nagawa and Christian one final time. Months after their conversation over coffee, they met again at the wedding of a mutual friend. This time, there was no awkwardness, no anger, no bitterness, just two people who had grown. Christian watched Nagawa greet people with confidence. She laughed freely. She carried herself differently, not because she was pretending to be strong, because she had become strong. For a moment, Christian remembered the woman who had once waited anxiously for his messages. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone who had discovered her confidence didn't depend on anyone else's approval. As they talked, Christian quietly said, "I didn't realize what I had until it was gone." Nagawa smiled kindly. She didn't say it to hurt him. She simply replied, "Sometimes we all learn important lessons too late." That moment wasn't about winning. It wasn't about revenge. It was about growth. And that brings us to one of the biggest misconceptions about relationships. Many people believe success means getting an ex back. Not necessarily. Sometimes success is becoming emotionally healthy enough that you no longer need them back. That's real freedom. Because when your happiness depends on one person's decision, you've handed them the keys to your emotional life. Never give anyone that much power. Now, let's talk about second chances. Should you always give one? No. Should you never give one? Also no. Every situation is different. People can change. Relationships can heal. But reconciliation should never happen because someone feels lonely. It should happen because both people have become better than they were before. Ask yourself some honest questions. Has trust been rebuilt? Has accountability been shown? Have the same unhealthy patterns actually changed? Do their actions consistently match their words? If the answer is no, love alone won't fix the relationship. Love needs honesty. Love needs maturity. Love needs effort from both people. Steve Harvey has often reminded audiences that standards matter. Not because you're trying to be difficult, but because accepting less than you deserve eventually teaches people to keep giving you less. Respect yourself enough to expect respect from others. Now, here's something I want every viewer to remember. Confidence isn't waking up every morning believing you're perfect. Confidence is knowing you're valuable, even though you're imperfect. It's understanding that rejection doesn't erase your worth. Think about a diamond. A diamond doesn't lose its value because one person walks past it without noticing. Its value remains the same. The only thing that changed was who recognized it. The same is true for you. Not everyone will appreciate your kindness. Not everyone will value your loyalty. Not everyone will recognize your heart. That doesn't make your heart less valuable. It simply means they weren't the right person to appreciate it. Too many people spend years trying to convince the wrong person instead of preparing themselves for the right one. Don't make that mistake. Use disappointment as preparation. Use heartbreak as education. Use rejection as motivation to become wiser, healthier, and emotionally stronger. Remember this. The goal isn't to make someone miss you. The goal is to become someone who no longer needs validation from people who failed to appreciate you. When that happens, something beautiful begins to change. You stop chasing. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop begging for attention. You stop settling for relationships that leave you anxious every day. Instead, you choose peace. And peace is one of the most attractive qualities a person can have. People notice someone who is comfortable in their own skin. They notice someone who doesn't have to compete for affection. They notice someone who knows exactly who they are. Ironically, that's often when healthier relationships begin. Not because you were searching desperately, but because you finally stopped searching for your worth in someone else's opinion. If Christian learned anything from losing Nagawa, it wasn't simply that she was a wonderful woman. He learned that love should never be taken for granted. If Nagawa learned anything, it wasn't that all men are the same. She learned that her future would never again depend on someone else's choice. Both of them became better people because they were willing to learn instead of blame. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. Every relationship teaches us something. Some teach us how to love. Some teach us what we will never accept again. Both lessons are valuable. So, if you're watching today with a broken heart, I want to leave you with this thought. Your story is not over because one chapter ended. The person who rejected you does not have the final word over your future. Your future is written by the choices you make today. Choose healing. Choose growth. Choose forgiveness, not because someone else deserves it, but because you deserve peace. Choose to become the kind of person who attracts healthy love, instead of chasing unhealthy attention. One day, you'll look back on this painful season, not with regret, but with gratitude, because you'll realize that losing the wrong relationship made room for the right life. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this message encouraged you, please support the Love and Relationship Lab by subscribing, liking this video, and sharing it with someone who may need these words today. Leave a comment below and tell us, what lesson has heartbreak taught you? Your story may encourage someone else who is quietly fighting the same battle. Until next time, remember this: know your worth, protect your peace, and never forget that the strongest love you'll ever build is the love founded on self-respect